Today we're going to talk about portals. Usually, we talk about the weather, about nature, but today we're going to talk about portals. What are they for? And let's talk using the example of this car right here, a 2021 Jeep Wrangler JL, which we recently worked on. What are portals for anyway? First and foremost, of course, they're for off-road capability. Let's take two cars and compare them, one without portal axles and the other with portal axles. If we're driving off-road, the strategy for getting through a section is completely different for each. For a vehicle without portal axles, you need a more dynamic tactic because you're driving, there's some kind of track ahead, some sections. So you have to keep moving dynamically. If the vehicle is moving dynamically, that means it can skid or something unexpected might happen. You constantly have to stay alert and make sure nothing goes wrong. So, it's a much more extreme style of driving. If we take a vehicle with portal axles, you can drive through any section absolutely calmly. And here's a big misconception, because many people think that portal axles mean extreme off-roading and so on. No, that's not necessarily the case. You can build a vehicle so that you can drive through different off-road sections calmly and safely. Safety comes first. You don't have to strain yourself. You don't need to hook up a winch. You don't have to get out and get dirty. There are tons of advantages. First, it's about off-road performance. Second, can you drive this vehicle in the city? Yes, of course you can. I mean, as long as you're not bothered by the larger size or the lack of parking spaces, you can drive around the city absolutely calmly and freely. But would I drive a vehicle like that myself? Probably only occasionally. It will probably be more of a weekend car. And for everyday driving, I'd probably use something like a Suzuki Jimny because it's small, short, and tall, so you can see everything around you and spot where the traffic jam ends. So this car is really for the emotions, for weekends, for expeditions. Right now, we're getting ready to go on an expedition. About a week, we'll finish up the cars, and this vehicle, along with 5 others, will head out on an expedition to the Carpathians. And it's going there under its own power on these very wheels. We'll spend a week driving around there and then come back. So what does that tell you? It means the car is versatile. You can use it to cover long distances and, well, pretty much tackle any kind of off-road terrain. The first time I went to the Carpathian border, it's an event we have. And before that, a year earlier, the Carpathian border was kind of fateful for me because absolutely everything broke down on me. Back then I had a Range Rover Classic. You've seen it on the channel. By the way, that's the one I put portals on for the very first time. And it was really tough for me to get through that whole event. I had to use the winch. My differential broke. We had to go to a village to weld and fix it. There were all sorts of technical breakdowns. And we made it. We finished the event and then even drove back on our own. When I came back a year later, I already had portals, and I drove the entire route, the exact same one, without using the winch, without getting stuck. I even chose the most difficult sections on purpose because I was curious to see how the car would handle and what it was capable of. So, those are the clear advantages. Now I want to talk about some technical aspects. Right now, we're going that way because the wheel is turned over there. So, a lot of questions are being asked. So, if we install portals, will the track width really get that much wider? Look, there's a simple answer. Even a car we've never worked on before. In fact, we can make any one of them. If you bring us that car, we'll do it. That is, we adapt our already finished portals to this car. Look, there are certain criteria. So, why does the track width get wider? Look, right now the wheel is turned exactly the way we need it so we can take a closer look. So I have this wonderful stick here, and I'm going to explain everything to you now. So look, the center of the wheel was right here. We moved the wheel down by 130 millimeters. This is exactly the clearance shift we get, the increase in clearance thanks to the portal, 130 millimeters. We moved it down. What happened to the steering knuckle? It was raised 130 millimeters up. Accordingly, if before it could be tucked inside the rim, we could have used a positive offset disc, like plus 100, plus 200, basically a very positive offset, and pushed it in there. We can't do that because if we move it, the rim hits the steering knuckle. Yes, we can make the rim 24 to 26 and we'll push it in and the track won't widen. Well, not by much. But what kind of tires can we put on a 22-inch or 24-inch disc? This isn't about off-road capability now. We're after a middle ground. If we wanted a showpiece, then yes. But if we're talking about off-road capability, about actually using it off-road, then it's, well, 17s, maybe, or even if we put on 20s, they're still going to hit here. So right now, the factory wheels are still on, and they have an offset of plus 45. Our own wheels, which will be installed here soon, have an offset of plus 60, so they'll be set in another 15 millimeters further inside. There will be a technical gap left here so that stones, sticks, twigs, and so on do not get stuck. That's it. And this steering knuckle clearance is really limiting us. You can just take your car, measure from here to here, add the thickness of the wheel, find the center, and you'll know how much the track width will increase. We can't move the steering knuckle any higher, because that would drastically change the steering geometry. We would have to move the steering gearbox and so on, so we don't mess with those components. That's why this criterion is fundamental. Another question we get all the time is, we bought a new car and we don't want to cut it. We're installing portals, so it's getting higher. Plus we have some kind of suspension lift as well. That suspension lift, the 2 inches they talk about, doesn't actually let you fit bigger tires. It just raises the car 2 inches higher off the ground, that's all. But with portals, because they significantly widen the track and move the wheel center away from the axle center, when you turn, the wheel moves much farther out, and the wheel's range of motion increases a lot. And at the moment, when we compress the wheel all the way to the bump stop, and that does happen, because if we built a suspension that doesn't compress, then the suspension is too stiff. So in any case, the suspension will compress all the way to the bump stop, and the rear wheel will hit the wheel arch. A Jeep isn't quite the right example, because a Jeep is originally designed with larger wheel arches and everything is built differently. It's not the right example. But for all other cars, that's exactly how it is. In other words, you can't put on larger wheels, say, bigger than 35 inches, without cutting it. So you have to cut all cars, no matter what. Either you just put up with the fact that something is always rubbing somewhere, or you have to cut. We cut well, with quality, and paint it like the factory does. Another really great advantage of portals that I want to mention, and I use this all the time, is that I have a special mat for it, which I always carry with me. And look, right now the weather is cloudy, and you never know if it's going to rain or if the sun will come out really bright. In any case, this mat will help me and the car on the portals. You take it and lay the mat down. So, this is how we lay out the mat and climb in. I want to say that it's absolutely safe here. There's no sun, no rain here. In addition, you can also check underneath to see if everything is intact, if nothing is broken, or maybe something has come loose. That happens too, because the car is used off-road, so different situations can occur. You can't do this in a car without a portal axle, because you probably won't be able to get in there, and you definitely won't be able to lie there comfortably. Here, you can move around, turn, even cross your legs. There you go. That's another advantage. I also want to talk about the wheels. So, as I already mentioned, the rims here are still the original ones, and we've hooked up the tire inflation system here. You can see there's this little hose running, and it's definitely for off-roading, but it can easily get torn off. But we set it up like this to test how it works on this vehicle. So we installed the inflation system in the back, inside the trunk, right here in the Jeep. It's actually really convenient. There's a special compartment for it. We used it to mount all the inflation system components here. Here we've got the compressor, the valve block, the dryer, and so on. And what's more, it all works pretty quietly, so you don't really hear it much inside the cabin. This way, we've protected these components, and they'll last a long time. And now, about the wheels. Looks like it's starting to rain. We love rain because rain means mud, and mud means off-roading. Rain won't stop us. So let's talk about the wheels. Here, we have 40-inch wheels. Let me tell you a story. A long time ago, probably back in 2002, in our city, we live in Ukraine, in the city of Dnipro. In 2002, there weren't many cars with mud tires around. And back then, I came across a single mud tire, a 35-inch one. I had a first-generation Pajero. We had a competition going on, and some of the competitors damaged the tire and just threw it away in the woods. I picked it up and, honestly, I would look at it every evening like it was something sacred. I really loved that tire. I tried fitting it onto my Pajero. The Pajero had tires on it that were, well, probably pretty bald, maybe 30s or 30 and a half, even though they were labeled as 31s. But this one was a mud tire, a Goodrich Mud Terrain, 35 inches on a 15-inch rim. It was just something divine. So I decided to buy 4 more tires like that. I successfully repaired that tire and put it on as my spare. And at the moment when I started thinking about buying those tires, I wanted to ask some users, some off-roaders, how those tires actually perform in everyday use, if you can drive them around the city, how much noise they make. Back then, that was something that genuinely concerned me. Although now we drive on more extreme tires, and for us, these ones are considered street tires, because there are even more extreme ones that really make a lot of noise and are actually uncomfortable to drive on. With those, you have to transport your car on a trailer. But back then, nobody knew that. There were only 1 or 2 cars driving around the city, just regular standard SUVs, but they had mud tires on them. I used to chase after them to ask the drivers how the tires performed, but I never managed to get any feedback. So I ended up buying those tires myself. They were 35s. I had to cut up my car, and those were probably the biggest tires in our city among all the off-road vehicles around. I drove that car every day, to competitions and so on. So now, when we started working with portals, when we began manufacturing portals, our standard tires became 37s. 35s, now when we look at them, they just seem tiny, like you could put them on any regular car. We have a new standard now, 37s. But just recently, we realized that we've had enough of driving on 37s. We need something bigger. At that point, we figured it was probably time to move up to 40s. And now, compared to the 40s, the 37s sitting right next to them just look like tiny spare tires. Now, those 37s are probably only good for putting on regular cars or crossovers, because for us, they're not even real wheels anymore. We've already moved on to 40s. We are interested. Yeah, I get it. We have an audience, a really big audience in America, who will say something like, we've been driving on 40s, 44s, and so on for probably 3 decades already. But our reality is a bit different, so now we've started putting 40s on our vehicles, and on one car, soon you'll see, we're starting to put 43s. What we have is already not enough for us, and we want to go even bigger. Right here, on this vehicle, we have Yokohama Geolandar 005 tires. Why did we choose these tires? Well, it's simple. It was available, we bought it, and it performs well in all kinds of mixed conditions. So, if you need to drive on the road and also do some extreme off-roading. It's not the best tire, let's say it's average, but it's a universal tire, so to speak. It makes minimal noise, minimal humming, and it offers good off-road capabilities, especially if you let some air out of the tires. That's all about the tires. Let's move on. We were allowed to take a little drive in this car, just a bit, literally just to go up the hill. This is something amazing. Guys, this is a Jeep. Here's the transfer case lever. It's just, I don't know, probably like in a UAZ. Use force engage it. Wow, awesome. So cool. You sit up high, it's tall. If you compare it to other projects, like our Tacoma, the Tacoma's body is lower by itself, but the Jeep is tall. Plus, it was lifted a bit, so when you drive it, you're basically at the same level as some buses. Let's sum it up. Does an off-roader need portal axles? Yes, it does. We get a number of advantages. And I want to say that we're ready to work on absolutely any vehicle, even non-standard ones. The more unique or challenging it is, the more interesting it is for us. We're always excited to develop something new. You can bring your car to us, and we'll definitely turn it into something out of the ordinary. It'll be on portal axles, with big wheels. This won't be your typical car. And before we wrap up, I'd like to hear the opinion of an ordinary passerby we met in the woods while filming this segment. So, Gleb, could you come over, please? We've already met him.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, let me just get the mic out. No, I'm not going to give it to you. Yeah, just speak into it. Yeah, so, tell me, what do you think of this car? This is your first time seeing it. What are your feelings?
Honestly, I was blown away. I thought it was some kind of monster truck or something. The wheels are huge, the suspension is massive and tall, and the tires are all studded. Man, it's just wild.
So, is that good or bad?
Of course, it's awesome. You get out, and everyone knows you're a cool guy.
See, these are just the emotions of an ordinary person. That's exactly what we're aiming for. It's these very emotions that this car gives people. Thank you, Gleb. Here's one of our caps for you. Thanks to everyone. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe. Bill. Click everything there is. Stay with us. See you soon.
I'm off.
Bye.
Thanks more.